Hiring good talent is a game changer to get the results you desire. But in today's environment, it is more difficult than ever. Therefore, it's important to know what makes the difference in the hiring process to identify, attract, and retain talent. Lou Adler is an expert in this field, and he will share with us what made him exceptionally successful in hiring talent. Welcome to the Excellent Executive Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Katrina Burrus, and today we'll be interviewing Lou Adler, a hiring expert. Lou, welcome.
Hey, delighted to be with you today, Katrina. Thank you very much for inviting me.
So, Lou, tell us, what does it entail to be good at hiring people?
Well, I've been hiring people for many, many years. And to be real good at it, it starts by understanding what you're looking for. And most jobs just list skills, experience, and competencies, but that's not really what the job is. The job is a list of performance objectives and understanding of the culture, the team, the challenges. And to be real good at hiring, you have to know what this person's got to do in the environment in which it takes place. And if you don't do those things, it's just random luck if you hire a good person who really excited about the work and the situation.
So really know what the performance they have to do and in what environment they'll have to do it. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so you developed a model of performance-based hiring. Can you tell us what it is?
I certainly can. Let me kind of give you a little background. I didn't join the industry world and go to school to become a recruiter. My background is in engineering and manufacturing. And I only became a recruiter because I didn't like my boss. I was running a small manufacturing company, and I didn't like my boss. So I quit one year, many years ago, and just quit and became a recruiter. But my first assignment was for a plant manager making automotive components. And I noticed the president was using a job description that listed skills, experience, and competencies. And I told him, this is not a job description, that's a person description. What do you want the person to do? And we walked through the manufacturing plant and found things that the person needed to do to be successful to turn the plant around. Well, many years later, doing that many times, I realized that job descriptions listing skills and experiences prevent you from hiring the right person. Defining the work, at least is the start. But performance-based hiring is based on the idea that, hey, let's define performance. Let's find people who want to do that work, who are exceptional at doing that work, who might have a different mix of skills and experiences. Let's understand that this job represents a career move, and let's do all the steps involved in defining the work, defining people, ensuring that they're successful on the job. So in a nutshell, Katrina, putting all those pieces together is what performance-based hiring is. It's a system designed to hire people who find the work that needs to be done career motivating, internally motivating, and the hiring manager finds these people exceptional people. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. And that's the genesis of it is, hey, just observing how people perform real time on the job and what drives their performance and satisfaction, bottling that up into a hiring process ultimately became performance-based hiring.
I see. So if I could say what they need to do, define what is good and bad performance. You have to find people who want to do that kind of work, indicate what career moves are possible, making sure once they get the job that you ensure that they will be successful. And the career's got to be motivating internally for them, intrinsically and extrinsically. Is that correct? Did I miss something?
I would say both, yes. It's got to be intrinsically motivating as well as extrinsically motivating. So yes.
Mm-hmm. And so how did you develop that performance-based hiring?
Well, actually, initially, defining the work I found relatively simple because my background is engineering manufacturing. And most of the search assignments I started were jobs that I understood. A lot of manufacturing positions, logistics positions, supply chain procurement. But I also had a background in finance and accounting and cost accounting. So accounting positions, budgeting positions, financial planning positions, I understood that. So defining the work was interesting. Then after a while, and this is 5 or 10 years, I've been doing this for many years, I realized there were some hiring managers who were exceptional at attracting and hiring great people. And they were in all variety of positions. Some of them were accountants, some of them were VPs of marketing, some manufacturing, some controllers, some engineers. But they all had a common theme is that they dug into the candidates' accomplishments in relation and compared them to the real job that needed to be done. So that ultimately became the performance-based interview, digging deep into the candidates' accomplishments and the environment in which those accomplishments took place and compared that to work that needed to be done. So that was two pieces of the puzzle. Okay, now I could assess candidates. The third piece of the puzzle was I had to find candidates who wanted to do that work. So that was a piece and a critical piece. And the fourth piece is most of the times the money that the company was offering wasn't always the best. And many times a candidate wasn't leaving and they could just stay. So it was a lot of decisions. So the only way that the candidate would actually consider this if the job itself put them on a faster career trajectory. So you have all these pieces: understanding the work, conducting the interview, finding candidates, ensuring that you had the best career move. And that took, I'll say, 10 years of hundreds of candidates and interviews and sitting in on interviews and tracking it. So it was not an instantaneous process. But the foundation was understanding the job and the environment in which it took place and the situation. So if you didn't have that, it was all luck if you hired the right person. And most hiring managers don't want to spend the work up front understanding the job and environment. They just hope to fill a job with someone who applies. And quite frankly, that's not how you hire the best people.
Okay, so let's have a specific situation where somebody likes the job, can do the job, has done it before, and can find it really interesting, but the money is just not good. So how do you compel the job, making it compelling so that they would take it anyway because they have a fast career track, let's say?
Well, let's say this. If you're within 10 to 15% of the total comp, you're in the game. But what I ask candidates, and I tell this to candidates up front, so let's assume I was recruiting you for a job, VP Marketing, Katrina. I said, Katrina, if we make you an offer for this role, a few days we actually formalize the offer, I'm going to ask this question to you. Forget the money. Do you really want this job? And the expected answer is, yes, you do. And I say, why? And we hope that you really have enough information to define the work as a series of, hey, I like to do this work. I like working with this team. This work is intrinsically motivating to me. I'm making a bigger impact. I am working with a group of people whom I like. I like to work with the hiring manager. I like the company and the industry, and I see it as a long-term opportunity. And I make the contention, Katrina, if you were the candidate, that if you don't understand the job at that detail level, don't take it regardless of what we pay you. And we very well might pay you the most. But even if we don't pay you the most, and if we're within, as long as it's competitive, it's what you make in year 2 and year 3 that's going to really be the big impact, not what you make in year 1. It's where you're going, not what you get on the start date. And most candidates agree to that. And I say, well, think about the best job you've ever had. Was the best job you ever had where you enjoyed the work you were doing, you enjoyed the people? Was it because of the money or was it because of something else? And most people say it was something else. I say, well, let's see if we can find those things. The team, the work itself, the impact it could make, the work-life balance. So you got to look at the totality of the job, not just what you get on the start date. Obviously, if you're 30 or 40% less than everything else, that's not going to happen. So you got to be competitive, but you don't always have to be the best. But long-term satisfaction is not the money. It's these other factors that really, where you spend your time every single day, that drives growth and satisfaction and personal development.
So you have to love the job. You have to like the team with which you're going to work. You have to feel like you're going to have a bigger impact, that there's long-term opportunities. Did I forget one?
No, I mean, that's the essence of it. I mean, the issue is most candidates get hung up on that start date package because it's real and it's tangible. Most companies don't really define the work. They just generalize what the work is. But there was an article in Fortune magazine 2 or 3 weeks ago that said 2/3 of people who accept jobs during this great resignation are disappointed in the first 60 days and want to leave because the job wasn't what they thought it was. Well, it's because they took a generic job for generic reasons of what the start date package was. So the real point is to look at what you're going to be doing once you get the job and the environment in which it takes place and the people, particularly the hiring manager, because that's such a critical impact on your environment. If you don't get that part right, it doesn't matter what they pay you, you'll be dissatisfied. So you got to look at all of those factors, but there's too much focus on what you get on the start date and not enough on the work and the environment in which it takes place.
So it's really managing expectations too, in a sense.
Well, in some way, it's not it's clarifying them up front. If that's why hiring managers often reluctant to do it. So I tell hiring managers, why don't you define the job as a series of performance objectives up front? I don't have time. And I ask them, when are you going to tell the candidate what they're going to be doing? After they're hired or before? I said, why don't you define it before you even start looking so you can find people who are competent and motivated to do that work? And the bigger impact of that is you open up the talent pool to everybody who can do that work, who might have a different mix of skills and experiences. So if you define the work as challenges, sometimes the best people have less experience because they grew faster. Many times diverse candidates didn't have the same academic background, but have accomplished something similar. But if you use your standard filters, you won't even see those people. So the idea of clarifying expectations up front is a game changer in terms of attracting the best people, assessing them properly, and hiring for the right reasons.
So it's really taking the time to define the job and very specifically.
Well, I just we do this. So this is what I do for a living is we help companies rethink their job descriptions. We call them performance-based job descriptions. But it starts with this question. What do you want this person to do to be successful? Or what does this person have to do to be successful? And most jobs can be defined as 2 or 3 performance objectives that define the task, the action, the result, and a couple of subtasks. Well, we need someone to launch a project. In the first 90 days, I got to understand the problem. They got to come up with alternatives. They got to put a plan together. They got to get the plan approved. They got to build the team. They got to execute the solution. Most jobs can be defined by 6 to 8 performance objectives like that. And the reality is that makes the manager a better manager by defining it up front rather than hoping to hire the right person. So it doesn't really cost any more time. You just do the same work up front. And most managers don't want to do it up front or do it after they've hired the person. So they're really not meeting basic management 101 criteria when they hire that way.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. So what got you into the recruiting business?
Well, it's because I was running a manufacturing company. I was on a good career track, was destined to, I was told I was going to be running a bigger division, but I hated the group president. Literally, that was the reason. I loved the work. Had a 300-man company doing well. I was 32 years old. The group president always thought I screwed up. He came in every other week, one day, demotivated me. It took me a couple of days to get over it. And as long as he wasn't there, I was great. Now, so I quit 4 times in 1 year. And I was his boss, then tried to talk me out of it each time. But then I just said, no, I can't deal with him anymore. And they said they were going to get rid of him, but that was not going to happen for a year or two. So I said, I become a recruiter. And in many ways, I only was going to use it for 6 months to a year to see if I could find a better job. But as I started looking at it, I said, recruiting is a business process. If you look at each component of it, just like manufacturing, if you have bad parts or bad processes, you don't keep on duplicating them or do them faster. You try to figure out what's wrong here. So that's really what became fascinating to me, is that hiring could be a business process, but yet most people think, no, let's post a boring job, let's offer ill-defined lateral transfer, and let's try to be more efficient doing that silly stuff, and we'll get better people. And to me, nothing's gotten better since I've been a recruiter for 40 years, and the birth of the internet was 25, 30 years ago, and applicant tracking systems and high tech. But as far as I'm concerned, they're just perpetuating incompetency at a faster rate. And companies aren't happy. They're not happy with all the results and almost $500 billion of investment in hiring processes. And what's gotten better? And we still post boring jobs and hire boring people and wonder why they're not happy. Pretty obvious once you study what's going on and what's wrong.
So would you say that's the biggest problem with hiring top talent today, or is there other issues too?
Well, I think if I had to go to the tactical level, it's not defining work as a series of performance objectives and finding people who want to do that work. So at a very tactical level, that's the problem. The bigger problem, the big gorilla in the room, is companies think they can hire people and weed out the weak. Hey, we'll just post these boring jobs and a few good people will remain. The reality is, if you want to hire the best people don't apply to job postings. So they might engage in a conversation with a recruiter or manager to see if it's a career move, but it's much more high-touch process to determine if it's a career move. So the idea is, if you want to hire the best people, you have to have an attract the best talent strategy, and all the tactics designed underneath that have to meet that need of attracting the best, rather than trying to be more efficient, weeding out the weak. In my opinion on technology, I get kicked out of a lot of technology meetings because I say, being fast or doing the wrong thing doesn't make you better. You're just mistaking activity or progress for activity. You're not hiring better people. Just look at the last 20, 25 years. Job satisfaction hasn't increased since Gallup has been keeping track of it. It stays at 1/3 of all jobs being filled are people satisfied. And you look at the results of Fortune a month ago. It's even worse today because we're trying to do something wrong faster.
Let's go back to the fact that the best people don't apply for jobs. So how do you go about it?
For example, you look at, and I just take my informal surveys, although we've done very formal, you look at how the top 25% got jobs. It's usually because they were contacted by a recruiter or someone whom they know initially, or they were referred to something by somebody they know whom they trust. But they spend more time doing the due diligence and understanding it. And you ask, why did you take that job? It's because they could see it as, it might have had enough money in it, so I don't want to ignore that. But the reality is the job represented a good career move. The best people aren't willing to take an ill-defined lateral transfer. You look at 95% of the jobs on LinkedIn or Indeed, they're nothing more than ill-defined lateral transfers. And they say, come with us. We're a great company. We'll give you more money, but you're going to be doing the same work you did, but we're not going to actually tell you what the work is. So you just look at it, you just peel the onion a few levels, and you say, this is a silly process if you want to hire the best. All a company has to do is look at the best 20 people they've hired in the last year and just ask them, hey, Katrina, how'd you get this job? Who'd you talk with? And you start asking all your people whom you've hired who for managers or above, or even your best technical people, it's usually because they knew someone in some kind of network or referral. And it wasn't an instantaneous transaction. That person actually thought about it and understood it and had multiple meetings. So you start benchmarking how the best people got jobs. You wouldn't do what companies are doing and spending billions of dollars on investing in technology, because that's not how the best people find jobs. That's how you fill jobs with a person who's qualified based on experience and skills and competencies, not how you hire people, more diverse talent and high potential talent, because they don't look for jobs that way.
So the best people, it's a lot of high touch.
Well, definitely, I say you got to use high technology, but you got to overlay it with a high touch process.
So what you do first, what's the process?
Well, the process to me is you define work as a series of performance objectives.
Okay.
You then ask the hiring manager, what's the employee value proposition? Why would a great person want it? Then you start looking for people who might have worked with that person whom you know. You build a deep network. You might also want to look for people who have done comparable work, searching for that, and send them very compelling emails, and really trying to arrange in a high-touch process. I mean, there's more to it than that, Katrina. Our whole company trains people to do that. And it's even summarizing it is, hey, if at least 50 to 60% of your effort should be using referrals. And LinkedIn's got what most people ignore is that LinkedIn is a network of 800 million people, not a database of 800 million people. I mean, people use it as a database, but I can look on your LinkedIn profile and I connect to you. Most people don't know that, but I can search on your connections. And rather than say, Katrina, who do you know would be really great in marketing or running a company? But if you know those kind of people, I could look at your LinkedIn profile, search on your connections, and say, hey, Katrina, what do you think of this person and that person? Oh, this person's great. Not so sure about that person. Well, do you mind if I call that person up and mention I talk with you about it? And then all of a sudden that person will call me back and I can recruit the person. But this is a high touch process, but using LinkedIn as a network of 800 million people, not just a database of 800 million people. In that process, you convert a cold call into a semi-warm, let's call it a warmer call. And people will, oh, you know, Katrina, great. How's she doing? Hey, by the way, Judy, would you be open to talk about this job if it represented a career move? It just changes the whole dynamics of the process. So our suggestion is spend 50 to 60% of your time getting referrals. And with all the tools out there, that's the high tech. You can find those referrals pretty quickly. But then it's the high touch process of talking to those people, reconnecting with them and searching on their connection. So it's more involved than that, but that's the concept that I advocate.
Wow. And how long did you say it took you to get this streamlined process?
Well, let's say this. I'd always done referrals. That was just in the olden days, because I've been doing this for 40 plus years. In the olden days, you had to get on the phone and talk to people. So it was very natural that you would do this. As tools came available, it's pretty easy right now. I mean, we can find candidates for almost any job in 24 hours, the names of them, connecting with them. Since everyone can find them, they're just being bombarded with recruiters trying to call these people. But if I can say, hey, by the way, Katrina suggested I give you a call, I get right to the top of the list right away. So it's always about, hey, identifying the people and then figuring out a way to find a connection to get that person to call you. So if the technology is there, you can find anybody right now with the tools available. Getting them to talk to you that's the real high touch skill that's essential today. But it all falls apart if you don't know the job. So, I mean, it's just like a salesperson selling a product and service. If that salesperson doesn't know the product and service, doesn't have a lot of credibility. But if the salesperson, in this case, the recruiter, knows the job, knows the manager, knows the industry, really understands it from a career value standpoint, all of a sudden you've just changed the name of the game. And I think that's too many recruiters don't understand a job well enough, and too many managers don't want to spend the time to explain that to their recruiters. They don't realize that their future is represented by the quality of the candidates that recruiter can deliver. So I think that dynamic is clearly missing here. People just think they can use technology to fill jobs, and it's not possible.
Thank you very much. We come to the end of our podcast, but so interesting, so specific processes that you put into play. And thank you very much for your insight. Where can people get a hold of you?
Well, the best way probably is I've written a number of books. The most recent is Hire With Your Head. So they could certainly look on Amazon and find that. Certainly go to LinkedIn and follow me on LinkedIn, or info@performancebasedhiring.com. But I think LinkedIn, connect with me or follow me on LinkedIn. I provide all this advice, and there's plenty of posts and articles where they can download and get lots of great information like this.
Wow. Thank you so very much, Lou. This is very, very useful information, especially in today's context.
Well, thank you very much. It was delightful chatting with you too, Katrina. Hopefully it was helpful.
Yes, it has been. Thank you, Lou.
Thank you for listening to the Excellent Executive Coaching Podcast. You can subscribe to all future podcasts at excellentexecutivecoaching.com. Join us each Wednesday to learn more about the latest trends in leadership techniques and bring your coaching to the next level. To learn more about Dr. Burrus' CEO Mastermind, use the contact form at excellentexecutivecoaching.com.